Happy Thursday, everyone. Just going to wait a few more minutes. We are live in the group. I'm super excited about this session today. So hopefully you're watching. Maybe you'll have some additional questions. Hi, Mary. Thanks for joining. I feel like some Thursdays are super crazy, and then other Thursdays, I don't know. It's been a weird week. Really weird week. All right, we're just going to wait a couple more minutes. So today's session is like a part one. So I don't know if we're going to have 10 parts, 100 parts, but there is always a ton of frequently asked questions. Hi, Latanya. When it comes to short sales or distress situations. So these particular 4 questions came from Lisa in our group. So Lisa, I don't know if you're listening live on Facebook, but thank you. This one's particularly for you, or maybe you're watching at a later date. But if you have some questions that you want answered, definitely post them here. Post them in the group because we want to make sure that you're getting your questions answered. A properly educated and supported agent is really going to help these homeowners across the country. So the 4 questions. Hi, Audrey. Hi, Nancy. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. So this is part 1 of our frequently asked questions when it comes to short sales. So if you have a burning question on your mind, we may be able to have time to get an answer today. If not, post about it, and we will certainly have many, many more trainings in the future. We go live every single Thursday at 11 a.m. Central, just so you know, some sort of training. So be on the lookout for that. Oh, Lisa's about ready to join us. So I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone. You're not muted, just mute. I will wait for Lisa to join because she actually was the one that had all of these questions. And then we'll go over what the questions are. I will answer them. And then you guys can ask questions from that or let me know any other comments or questions. Hi, Lisa. Thank you for joining. So these questions specifically came from you. So you probably already know what they are, but I'm just going to go over the questions and then get them answered for you. So your first question was, how do you contact and approach the seller's lender? How long does the process typically take? Once a short sale is approved, what is the time frame for closing? Does the seller's lender have to execute the listing agreement? So all very, very good questions. So thank you. I want to start off by saying, and I got this question yesterday. I use the word lender, bank, and servicer all the time. I don't know why sometimes I say bank, why sometimes I say servicer, but it's all the same thing, okay? So essentially when you're dealing with the short sale, you're probably dealing with the servicer, whoever the person makes the payments to, whatever the mortgage statement was, and they may or may not have a recent mortgage statement, that's who you're going to deal with, okay? So we'll start off by that. So Lisa, yeah, thank you. See, I told you we'd get them answered. So when I'm answering these, and if you have additional questions from what I'm saying, please post about it. But yeah, so lender, servicer, bank, for me, it means all of the same thing. But, and I'm not sure if it's not on here, but we'll just start. You're going to deal with whoever they're getting their mortgage statement from, okay? All right, so let's just dive right in. So first question, how do you contact and approach the seller's lender? So if you were not on one of my previous trainings, I think it was 2 weeks ago, it was the short sale intake sheet. And so if you go back to our guide section of our group, I do post all of the live streams that we've had. Okay, so just go back to that. It does also give in the link the short sale intake sheet. So when you first talk to someone, you want to get all of those questions answered. Specifically, who is the lender or the servicer or the bank? Okay, so that's really important. Now, every bank and servicer is different. So here's the thing, you do not have to get permission from the bank to do a short sale. That is your job as the listing agent, the expert, to determine what that price should be, okay? And so I always tell people you don't necessarily have to be an expert in that particular area. You have to be an expert on how that bank processes the short sale. Okay, is it FHA, if it's a VA, it's all gonna be different. So when you come across one of these, post it in our group. But the way that you would approach the seller's lender is by having the seller sign an authorization to release information. That is one of the things that I get signed at the listing presentation, okay? It's just a part of my paperwork. Now, most banks will accept a generic one. However, there are some banks that have specific authorizations, okay? And so if there is a specific one, then you're gonna need to get that signed. Once you get it signed, and let me just say that most banks prefer a wet signature. I always get wet signatures when I'm going to my distressed listings. I go to them. It's important for them to sit down with you one-on-one. It's just a different type of transaction. Once you get that authorization signed, then you want to fax, email, and or both into their lender, okay, or servicer. Like I said, I use those all the same. And then it will take a couple of days for it to get implemented into their system, uploaded, okay? So then follow-up is key. That's how you're gonna be able to speak to the lender on their behalf. Make sense, Lisa? And everyone else that is watching? All right, so that's the first question. If you have questions on any of this that I'm going over, just post them live in the group or in the chat and I will get to them. All right, so let's move on to the second question that Lisa had. How long does the process typically take? So I kind of have to chuckle a little bit at that question because dang, it is all over the board. So I would say generally 3 to 6 months. Now let's talk specifically about these end investors. FHA is probably going to be more on the long end. I mean, it could be 9 months. It really just depends. I should actually probably do an FHA training inside of this group. Anyone do an FHA short sale before? Just put, yes in the comments or yes in the live feed. They are a pain, but there's a lot of FHA distressed sales. So for an FHA, Lisa, it has to go through the waterfall process. What does that mean? It just means that the sellers are required to go through the loan modification first, okay? And so maybe they've come to you, like I just got a FHA approved. And the reason why it was so quick is because they had already been through the loan mod process before they came to me. So again, and I have to stress this, and I'm going to probably sound like a broken record on all of these frequently asked question live streams, but every situation is different and unique. And so FHA is going to be on the long run. Now, if you get a Fannie Mae deal, I have this Fannie Mae happy dance that I do. I'm not going to show it on here yet. I'm going to get to know you all a little bit more, but I love Fannie Mae. And so the way Fannie Mae works is they go through homepathforshortsales.com, and essentially you're dealing with the lender up front, and then the lender will say, hey, now is the time to initiate through HomePath, and then you're going to deal directly with HomePath. I would say from the time you get the offer till the time that it is approved, it's probably a 6-week process, possibly shorter, depending how quickly you respond and stuff to FHA. So I guess for that second question, I know that was a lot, but I would say generally it's 3 to 6 months. Okay, so Lisa said, that's what I thought regarding length of time, and no to FHA distress sales. So if you're looking to get in the niche of distress sales, FHA is probably not the best one to take on for your very first deal because it definitely can be a headache. There is that requirement. There is no way around it. You have to go through that process. But once the loan modification is either approved or denied, and then they go into a short sale, it does move pretty quickly. Mary said, like you said yesterday, it's good to ask them that question at any listing too. Like, are you current on your mortgage? Yeah. So even with my traditional sales, I just always ask because the pandemic has done none of us wonders. And so people may have been in a forbearance and they just think that money goes away. It does not. Okay. So just ask the question, are you current on your mortgage? No matter what type of listing you're taking on. Or have you ever done a loan mod? Because in an FHA situation, if you have done a loan modification and you started making those payments, let's just say you were behind 30,000. Okay. Well, what happens with that 30,000? It goes on the title as a second mortgage, and that gets paid first when you go to sell. So I know I'm giving probably a lot more in this session, and you're like, holy crap, Heather, what are you talking about? Yeah, we should probably have an FHA session here. All right, Lisa, makes sense for number 2? I think it does. Okay, question number 3. Once a short sale is approved, what is the time frame for closing? So I love this question. Once you have the short sale approved, your job as the listing agent, the expert, your job is not done. So there's certain things that you want to do after that approval letter. Make sure, number 1 is make sure that all parties are on task, okay? Because inside of that approval letter will be a deadline. It is your mission to get that closed before that deadline, because if you don't, and you have to ask for an extension, it could possibly open a can of worms. Again, probably something for another day, but in short, if that appraisal has expired, they will have to order a new one. What if it comes back higher? Yada, yada, million different things. Just get it closed in that time frame. So one of the things I have the buyer's agents put on the contract is not a close date. It should say 45 days upon lender approval. Don't put in a close date, okay? Because it's just not good. Just put in 45 days upon approval. And we can go further into depth in another Q&A for that. But once a short sale is approved, again, there's going to be that deadline. So some banks will only give you 30 days. Sometimes it's 60 days. I would say generally it is around 45 days. Okay. So that's why I prefer to have the contract state 45 days upon lender approval. So that's where there's a lot of confusion with these homeowners. They think, oh my gosh, I got an offer, I'm going to have to close in 45 days. No, we have to go through the entire short sale process with your bank. Once the bank issues that approval letter, you close in 45 days. Okay. Does that make sense, Lisa? Anyone have questions on 1, 2, or 3? I'm just going to put everyone on mute. It gets loud. Yes. Okay. Oh, so there's a question. Oh, is that Mary? Do you write your own contract or use your MLS contract to tweak it? So my office doesn't really allow dual agency. I've done a lot of dual agency before. But what I do is, like, we have a couple different contracts here. One of the contracts, which is pretty common, it's like 13 pages. And I wish they had a separate contract just for short sales. They don't. Maybe down the road, I could change some law where I'm like, just have a 1-page contract for short sales. The buyer's agents will write the contract. They will send everything to us. I do put the disclosures on the MLS. Yes, it is an as-is sale. We still have to provide those. However, in the listing, under the instructions, they can download how to properly fill out a contract for a short sale. That is another session that we should have, because I don't think many agents know how to properly fill out a contract. But I know contracts are different no matter where they're at. And so I do provide those instructions in the listing, and I actually say, hey, please see the instructions. Okay, Lisa, you said we have a separate contract for as-is type sales. Awesome. I love that. So as-is important. All short sales are as-is. If you come to find out that these sellers have equity, I would still encourage you to do an as-is sale, okay? Why? Well, remember, put yourself in their shoes, okay? They're going through a tough time, and you really, really want to make sure that they're not coming out of pocket, okay? But our contracts all have as is. So if your contract does not have as is, then you need to advise the buyer's agent, whoever's submitting that offer to you, to have the as is addendum. So there's either going to be an addendum for as is, or it's as is right in the contract. I like giving the buyer agent the instructions. That's a great idea. Yeah, actually, Mary, that's a good thing to add into our group. I don't know. It's just, I implemented that several years ago. It's just made my life easier. And so when an offer comes in, my transaction coordinator reviews it. If it's not done properly, well, then get it done properly before we actually go through it. Absolutely need a clean break and get through the process. Yes. The more that we can make this short sale process easy, the better it is going to be for the homeowners in the end. And that's our ultimate goal. This is all about helping the homeowners. Okay. All right, so that's question number 3. Question number 4, does the seller's lender have to execute the listing agreement? So no, they do not. And so when your sellers are facing foreclosure, they technically still own the property. They are on the title of the property. So they have to cooperate 110%. So let's just pause on that. So whoever is on the more title, so there's some people that are only on, let's say Mary and her husband Joe. I don't remember your husband's name. Mary and Joe are on the title, okay? But Mary is not on the mortgage. So Mary and Joe have to go in and sign all of the short sale paperwork. That includes listing, all of that. But when you go to do the short sale, Mary does not have to provide any of her information. It's just Joe. So in the end, it is going to be up to the lender on whether or not they're going to accept the short sale. But your sellers, because they're on the title, they have to cooperate and sign everything. So the bank doesn't have to sign anything. Does that make sense? Now, it's really important if you're doing these distressed sales is to have an indemnity agreement. And so I know some of you are inside of our member group. If you're interested in that, then I'll post about it later. But we do have that indemnity agreement. Have I had issues in the past? No, but something you don't want to go in and guarantee is like relocation assistance. It's not something that you can negotiate. They either qualify or they don't. So it's just important to protect you and your team moving forward with these types of sales. So for anyone that is just joining, these are the questions that we covered, and I'll just briefly state them again, and then please let me know any additional questions that you have. Lisa, hopefully this helps. So these questions were all from Lisa Luter. Hopefully I'm saying your last name correctly. She posted them in one of our polls, and so I want to get to everyone's questions. Remember, these weekly live streams are about you and really helping educate and support you. So number 1, how do you contact and approach the seller's lender? In short, you would have them sign an authorization, which allows you to speak on their behalf. You don't want the sellers to contact the lenders. That is a big nightmare. So you want to be in full control of the process. So the only way to do that is to get them to sign an authorization. Most banks will allow for a generic one. Some banks have specific ones. How long does the process typically take? I would say generally 3 to 6 months. Fannie Mae is going to be on the lower end. FHA is going to be on the higher end, okay? Depending if they have gone through the waterfall process before they've come to you or not, okay? Once the short sale is approved, what is the time frame for closing? So again, I advise that you instruct these agents to put 45 days upon lender approval for the closing date. Most banks will give you around 45 days, but very, very important when you get that approval letter to review it and put the deadline in your calendar. You want to make sure all people are on target to get to that close date, because you definitely don't want to open up a can of worms and have to ask for an extension. You can, and most of the time they'll give you one, but just don't. Just get it done during that time, okay? So I would say around 45 days by the time you get the approval and you actually go to closing. Okay. And then the fourth one is, does the seller's lender have to execute the listing agreement? The answer to that is no. If it was an REO, the sellers are no longer owning the property. So the bank would sign the listing. But in a pre-foreclosure, whether they have an auction date or not, they are still on the title of the property. So all of them, whoever's on title and mortgage, have to cooperate. If they are not going to cooperate, it is going to be a huge headache and a waste of time. So just don't do it. But whoever's on the title has to go in and execute all of that paperwork. Any questions? Lisa, does that make sense? Do you have any questions based on what I have said? Or anyone else for that matter? If you have suggestions for these frequently asked questions for short sales or distress situations, go in and take our poll. So if you search in our group, actually, I'll just share my screen. If you search in our group for the poll was posted on, what's today? I keep thinking it's Friday. It's not Friday. The poll was posted on Monday. So if you just search for poll in our group, here, 3 days ago. And so some of the things that have come up, like tips for understanding how your state processes a foreclosure, 10 short sale tips, specific verbiage. So this is actually a really big one. I might take on that one next, just because it's really important to have specific verbiage to protect yourself. And then of course, my pre-foreclosure letter and all of them. So if you have suggestions, add one, post in the comments. I would love to know what you need to really help get you up and running as a distress expert. So yeah, go there and do that. Next week, be on the lookout. There's going to be something very big coming. So if you're in my member group, the announcement is coming earlier next week. But I anticipate next Thursday being one of the biggest days in this group. And if you have been around me for a while, you know that I'm always working on something behind the scenes, and I have a big heart. Ultimately, I want to help these homeowners, and I can't help these homeowners unless I start with you, the agent, first. So next Thursday's live stream, it's not going to be a Q&A session, but it's going to be a big announcement. And then after that, we'll get to more of the frequently asked questions. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to send plenty of emails. We're going to post about it. You do not want to miss this next Thursday, okay? Scott has a question. Have you ever done a short sale with a divorce? So yes, I have, and it is very tricky. I don't love dealing with them. But if you are dealing with a divorce situation, I would say the first question you have to ask is, hey, are you guys civil? Can you meet together? And if they say, yeah, great, but remind them, and you don't have to be rude about it, but I'm very clear, like, hey, I am here to help you guys get through this situation. I don't want you talking about him, her talking about you. Like, you just have to remind them kindly, okay? If they are not civil, then you're going to have to meet with them separately, period. And so it's going to be a little bit more work, but remember, in the end, you're helping them try to avoid that foreclosure. So sometimes you can meet together, sometimes you can meet separate. Regardless if it's separate or not, because they're going through a divorce, I have them both sign different packets and fill out their own packets and do their own hardship letter. That's just how we do it, because it just keeps their information separate from one another. So yeah, divorce ones are very tricky. Lisa said, I had one, but naturally I cannot remember it. I'm going to have to review and ask later. That's fine. You can post the questions directly in the group. I do have someone that's monitoring the group. And so if you have those questions, just post them. The group here is to help support you and educate you. So yeah, any other questions? Otherwise, please be on the lookout. We're working on everything right now. Huge announcement next week. People always says, like, people are saying, like, how did you fit all this in? Because we just moved. And it's like, I've been working on this all summer. And it's something, when I started Blueprint Short Sales in 2019, I wanted to do, but it has taken this long, and it finally all came together. So it's actually, it's going to be great for you all. So I will see you next Thursday live at 11 a.m. So be on the lookout for those posts next week. You'll get emails, posts. So yeah, it's going to be a really awesome week. Thank you, everyone. Have a blessed Thursday and weekend.